Ladies and gentlemen, this concludes my opening performance. Now, without further ado, we may proceed.
So this is what it is. Do not forget, however, that I am Focalor, the god of justice, the embodiment.
May I interpret these words as your refusal to stand trial? In that case, you will have the opportunity to defend your honor through a duel.
You would draw your blade against a god? I see. It seems like you have made up your...
I can't believe it.
What the heck is going on? Did I just see an Archon surrender?
Wow, how utterly humiliating.
Lady Farina, what is the meaning of this?
Shh! It would seem that there has been a misunderstanding. To be clear, the raising of both...
Looking for excuses again, huh?
I raised my hands just now to indicate my acceptance of the trial. No, I will admit that I've been running away. I'm sorry, everyone. You are not the only ones to be disappointed in me. But now, it is I, Farina, will use this trial to show the world the true... This time, I will... Applaud and rejoice! One of the most outrageous and fantastical arcs known to the opera epiclese is now unfolding before your eyes. Mark my words, this shall be one of the most exhilarating and brilliant shows ever to grace the stage of Fontaine! The trial of the Hydro Archon, Focalor, will now begin!
Woohoo!
Oh, now we're making history. Why does it feel like Farina just took over the whole thing? Like, come on! Didn't she just get forced to stand trial for her crimes? Also, even though she's still acting super dramatic, she is taking this seriously this time, right?
All right, then. Who will be my
The court asks the prosecutor to please take the stand.
Is that so? Very well. Then please... Also, please allow me to ask, as a final question before, just how much work did you do to force me onto this stage?
Well, we did do a lot of prep after the meeting that day.
I can go over the tasks assigned to the Spina di Rosula, since they were rather straightforward and easy.
Navia, the president of the Spina...
Most of the people who participated in the disturbance this morning were my subordinates. They changed into plain clothes and came to the Opera House as regular audience members. The people's resentment against their Archon has been building as more and more of the prophecy is fulfilled. A spark, moreover. According to our understanding and analysis of you, when something like that occurred, you would likely flee the scene and head to Poisson by yourself. So, we arranged for a second group to lie in wait there.
So, you mean... the ones who scoured...
And their goal was to force you to step into the giant magic box so you may personally participate in the greatest magic performance.
That's right. That house was a magic box, rather than some...
As the super ultimate version of the setup that I used when I first... The volume of the box was increased by a whole order of magnitude, and the distance it traversed was the entire gap between Poisson and Areneas. Its cargo, of course, was an Archon. My thanks, Farina. Without your help, we could never have pulled off Of course, this performance was only made possible with Father's support. The House of the Hearth spent a massive amount of labor in Mora to pull this off. We had to select a location, construct the giant magic box, dig a tunnel, and open up a path through the water. It was a lot of work for all of us.
So, in other words, the earthquake that we felt within the...
That's right. It wasn't a sign of another disaster to come.
Then, I can guess Nervilette and Cloran's parts. You gathered a crowd, prepared a stage, and made sure that the champion duelist would be immediate. Also that as soon as I appeared on the stage...
Yes, that is correct.
Well, Cloran, I must commend you for your courage. Only... As for you, traveler, I suppose your role was to keep me distracted with conversation. You'd make sure that I didn't notice anything amiss before revealing yourself as my prosecutor once we... Oh? It's fine. It matters not. What the stage is already set, so there's no reason to disappoint the audience. Let's see this trial through.
Sir Prosecutor, please allow me to pass this along. This is a document that Miss Charlotte applied for and received permission to share with you during the...
Huh? Charlotte wanted to give us something? Oh, so she's here. Oh, let Paimon see. Wait. Then that means this document is a perfect timeline of... So in other words, we can refer to this anthology of evidence every time we want to use something from our journey as evidence for an argument. Let's quickly confirm the information in it. Just think of it as a refresher, all right?
The prosecution and the defense are both in position. The trial shall now begin.
Oh, come on, Nervilette. There's no need to repeat all the Just fast forward to the part where the prosecution lays out my offenses. As the defendant and the lead, of course, it is only natural for humans to struggle to understand the...
That's true. But my charge here is unrelated to your conduct as an arc. Instead, I would like to charge you as a fraud who's
Wait, what was that? Lady Farina's a fraud?
Hey, I came here thinking that we were going to try the Hydro Archon.
Charge accepted. Lady Farina, do you plead guilty to the charge? Lady Farina.
I plead not guilty. There is no way that I, Focalor, otherwise known as Farina de Fontaine, a member of the Seven and the Regina of all waters, kindreds, peoples, and laws of Fontaine...
Yeah, even though Lady Farina can be rather eccentric, isn't it going too far to...
Yeah, I've never questioned her identity either. Sure, Lady Farina can be super
I have cause to believe that common sense will prevail in this case. Many of the members of the audience have known me as the Hydro Archon ever since they were... See? Even the Oratrice has decided to show me its favor. Are you sure you want to commit to a charge that will never be up? If you wish to drop the case, I can promise you as the god of justice that you will not have to face trouble.
An argument with near impossible odds, huh? You have to not only refute Farina's claims, but also overturn the long-held beliefs of the people.
Well, I tried to give you the chance to surrender. If you must persist, then let me ask. And if I was not the Archon, then how did I manage to live?
First of all, you may be a member of another long-lived race, which would allow you to naturally possess an extended lifespan. And
who gave you that idea? Was it the knave? You'd sink so low as to use a harbinger's words against me.
A curse? I once thought it possible that the aura of an Archon might naturally... But in light of this claim, perhaps what I sensed was not your divinity, but a curse after all.
Nervilette sensed it too, huh?
Lady Farina,
is actually a human?
Well, it is true that it's extremely difficult to tell humans and gods apart just by looking at them.
Well, don't start celebrating too early now. Even if I have been carrying a curse like you said. Besides, everyone knows that the main difference between a human and a god is the possession of authority. Gods can do what humans cannot. That's for centuries, manifestations of my authority have served the nation. One need only to turn their eyes towards the Oratrice Mécanique d'Analyse Cardinal in this very opera house, or consider the indemnitium.
You tried to reference the Oratrice, but weren't you as confused as all the rest of us when the Oratrice declared—
Didn't I make myself clear at the time? The decisions of the gods are naturally difficult—
Lady Farina, I believe a reminder of your current circumstances is in order. While the court is in session, the principles of justice and the law must come before all else. You will prove yourself unable to defend against the prosecution's charges if you continue to withhold vital information.
I never thought you'd use that kind of rhetoric.
That was no trick of rhetoric, Lady Farina. I've merely reiterated the rules of the court.
So, you neither knew why Child was declared guilty, nor did you understand the structure and operations of the Oratrice. Instead of having been created by you, the manifestations of authority you mentioned have been—
The real Hydro Archon. Well, now you're really losing. It is true that I did not know why but the Oratrice handed out that verdict unilaterally. And it has been operating independently. You can't argue that just because a divine creation is flawed, that the—
She's still throwing out all kinds of excuses. Seems like she's confident that we won't be able to produce proof that she has no power over the Oratrice.
My power as an Archon. There are many—
If that poses a concern, I'm prepared to extend my protection to the—
You don't need to go that far.
Aren't you the Hydro Archon? Or is it that you can't even wield the power of—
Indemnitium! Yes! It's all because of Indemnitium! All Archons derive their power from the faith of the people, and I've converted the people's faith in justice into Indemnitium! Thus did I give up all of my divine power to provide everyone with energy for their daily lives.
Isn't that a huge stretch?
Yeah, no matter how generous an Archon can be, how could they give up all their power? Can a god—
It seems like nobody's buying Farina's excuse.
Hey, come now, everyone! Please don't stare at me as if I was a liar! I'm still the same Farina you knew, right? The one that you loved! Please, you've got to believe me!
If what the prosecutor said is true, she really has committed a grave offense.
Did she deceive all of us? And all of our parents and grandparents too? And all of our ancestors?
Enough! That's enough! Tell me then, if I'm not the real Hydro Archon, then who is? If you have no evidence of another Hydro Archon's existence, nor can you find anyone who can back up their claim to be such—
Wow, she came up with yet another argument. How can we— It has been established that all Fontainians can dissolve in water from the primordial sea. And that means—
Since you insist on claiming to be a god and not a human, then there's a method that you can use right here and now.
Miss Navia, please apply to serve as a temporary attorney for the prosecution before addressing the court.
Super sorry, Monsieur Chief Justice. Now, I've brought some seawater from Poisson. As everyone knows, a massive flood struck the area not long ago, taking many lives, including those of some of my closest friends. So, Miss Farina, would you dare to touch some of the seawater? If we are to believe that you are indeed the real Hydro Archon, touching the seawater would have no effect on you. But if you don't dare to touch it, then we would have basically proved the reverse. Oh, and I must remind you that after the disaster at Poisson, nobody wants to see any— I do hope you'll act prudently and choose the simpler path.
Navia from the Spina di Rasula. The Spina has governed
If Lady Farina is indeed just a human, she's probably Fontainian like all the rest of us. Would she really dare to try?
Lady Farina, this test has been unilaterally proposed by the prosecution. As it falls outside the realm of standard court proceedings, you possess the right to—
Well, of course he had to tell her that. But refusing to participate is basically the same as a confession.
She's just staring at the water without saying a single word. It really—
What's going on? Is she really planning to—
Due to the inherent risk of the test, Lady Farina, you may—
What?
Hey!
I'm fine! Look at me, everyone! Will you believe me now? I really am your Archon! I'm nothing like a
Miss Siegewin? If you're present, Miss Siegewin, please—
Siegewin?
Don't be nervous. It'll just take a few seconds. That should be enough.
Please announce the results of your evaluation to the court, Miss Siegewin.
As everyone doubtlessly saw, Miss Farina was She was experiencing the adverse effects of exposure to primordial sea—
Thank you, Miss Siegewin. Lady Farina.
Oh, wait. What did she just say? I didn't get dissolved! Shouldn't that be enough to prove my innocence?
Well, considering your tendency to run from your problems, we did originally prepare a direct— However, after extensive discussion, we exchanged it for a sample that is not concentrated enough to dissolve an actual human. After all, on the off— we don't want anyone else to lose their life to the sea.
Yeah, so out of regard for Farina's life, you secured a low-concentration sample and asked the head nurse to serve as It's a great thing that the direct sample wasn't actually used.
I can't believe... Listen to me, everyone! Please don't give me such cold and disdainful look! Think about it! How can you conclusively prove that an Archon can't? Also, if I was really just a human, why would I dare to just... Please, everyone, anyone, just listen to me! I swear, I really am your...
I don't think anything she says at this point will sway anyone. The odds are just too—
With all the things that have been said, Paimon doesn't think—
I believe the time for arguments and presentation of evidence has come to an end. If there are no objections, we will move on to the final judgment.
I don't think anything she says at this point will sway anyone who's too stacked against her now.
In my capacity as Chief Justice, I shall now render judgment on Farina's misrepresentation of herself as the Archon of Fontaine. As a human who knowingly deceived her fellow citizens, Farina is guilty. We shall now turn to the oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale to render the final... According to the judgment of the oratrice mécanique d'analyse cardinale, for
Well, what's wrong? What's the oratrice's...
No, the oratrice also displays a guilty verdict.
Isn't that correct, then?
However, the exact wording of the verdict is thus. The Hydro Archon, guilty, to be punished via the death sentence.
The death sentence?
That's actually one of the available sentences? I've always thought that it was just a myth.
The one and only time the death sentence has been handed out at the court, and it's been given to the very
Furina's been sentenced to death by the oratrice?
This outcome is indeed quite strange. According to Fontaine's current definitions of justice, as well as its recommendations, is this sentence really appropriate for the crimes that have been...
Yeah! Even Fauché wasn't sentenced to death by the oratrice. You know, the real evil mastermind behind the...
Indeed. Not only is Furina's sentence overly excessive, but now the oratrice seems to have deliberately invoked the title of the
Excuse me, if I may interrupt. Is the trial still going?
Fremine! Oh, you finally made it. I assume this means you've completed your mission?
Mm-hmm. Any mission Father assigns to me will always be top priority.
Is that the first prophecy slate? Huh. So the knave privately arranged for Fremine to try and find the missing slate.
I looked everywhere and finally found it at the bottom of the sea. It took me a long time to get around some dangerous stretches of water. But has the trial already concluded? Then doesn't that mean I've come too late?
Thank you for your hard work, Mr. Fremine. Please allow me to review the record left on... Traveler, I believe that you have already seen the other existing slates, and would like you to come here and confirm their contents.
Huh? So what do you see? What is it?
I believe I've now made sense of the Hydro Archon's crime. It has to do with Fontaine's lost history.
Huh? Isn't the Hydro Archon just guilty of deceiving her? So when you say Hydro Archon...
In truth, everything that you've encountered in Fontaine up until this point can be traced back. However, I'm uncertain as to how much sense they currently make to you.
Okay, let's try to recall the contents of the other 3 stone slates. Paimon will do her best to help you remember. The first stone slate describes what you just said. It seems to show the previous Hydro Archon using her divine power, and then the Oceanids turn into humans. Does that mean that Fontainians are transformed Oceanids? Oh, Paimon, the second stone slate shows Celestia floating in the sky, and the Hydro Archon and her people worshipping it together. But the heavens still brought judgment down. This must be the point when the Hydro Archon and the Fontainians were branded with their original sin. Does this mean that the third slate shows the Hydro Archon seeking into the sea surrounded by many people? That reminds Paimon, didn't we also watch that happen to... Well, the fourth slate is the prophecy the Fontainians have been talking about. people dissolving into the sea, the Hydro Archon crying on her throne, and so on. We didn't believe that such a crazy disaster could happen at first, did we?
We know from the case of the serial disappearances of young women that Fontainians can be dissolved in primordial seawater, and this might be the reason that Fontainians can dissolve. Sin of the Hydro mentioned, and the original sin cast down on the people of Fontaine by Celestia, as recorded on the stone slates. It's not as simple as falling into the sea. When Navia fell into the sea, her consciousness was subjected to judgment. The stone slates show the people gathered around the Hydro Archon in the sea. Could that be alluding to the same thing? The prophecy from the stone slates found the fortress of Meropide was nearly flooded with if we hadn't dealt.
They'll dissolve into the primordial sea but won't cease to exist. Their essence will flow in the seawater, converge, and take the... The Hydro Archon was sentenced to death in court, shocking everyone present. Navia fell into the water inside those ruins, and she nearly dissolved. She was... The eruption of the primordial sea at the fortress of Meropide was the surest sign that the prophecy... The stone slate's content can all be verified by recent events. If we Huh? Oh, Paimon gets it now! So that's how you can make sense of it! But then it feels like we're going to have to share some truly shocking revelations.
Let's hear them.
Incredible! Linny, did you hear that?
We're not real humans.
All Fontainians were originally created by the late previous Hydro Archon, with Oceanids as their basis. The evidence for that can be found in how only Fontainians could dissolve in primordial seawater, and how all the girls Vacher dissolved were also turned into Oceanids. Oh, and according to Navia, when she was about to get dissolved, she also saw everyone gathered around...
Indeed.
Yeah, and it follows from the content of the first slate that that could also explain why the Oratrice judged the Hydro Archon to be guilty. It's to account for that ancient sin.
The Hydro Archon's true sin was creating us?
And yet, after many hundreds of years, the Hydro Archon's creations have turned around to try to judge the Archon within the Opera Epiclese.
Yeah, isn't the image here just like when Navia fell into the sea? So wouldn't it be trying to show the image of the Hydro Archon also falling into the sea once the prophecy has been fulfilled in the fourth slate? In the end, the people will all be dissolved into the waters, and only the... Did Paimon get all that right?
You've made some keen deductions. I must say, given how much you still don't know, it is impressive that you've already managed to connect so many pieces of the truth. However, while you were able to decode all the information on the slates, they've also been etched within it. When we were at the ruins, I tried to decipher the hidden info. Now that the slate collection is complete, I shall make another attempt to decipher.
Well?
I believe I should share this truth not only with you, but with all the people of Fontaine as well. I will try to briefly summarize it for you. Your hypotheses regarding the origin of Fontainians and the sin of the Hydro Archon were both correct. In the Fontaine of old, The previous Hydro Archon sensed the yearning of her Oceanid familiars for life on land. The Oceanids were enamored with the beauty and romanticism of human beings, and wishing to have those experiences for themselves, expressed to the Hydro Archon. However, even though water as an element is intricately linked with the power of life, the Hydro Archon, as one of the not one to give in, she eventually found a way to create permanent humanoid bodies for her familiars by appropriating the power of this planet's primordial sea. She poured primordial seawater into the Oceanids' blood vessels, creating humanoid mimics in the process. But if Fontainians were to ever come into direct contact with water from the primordial sea, the power within their bodies would escape. Of course, the Hydro Archon never received permission from the heavenly principles to create a new human race, and thus, the Hydro Archon and all of her creations came to shoulder the original sin of appropriating the power of the primordial sea. That is the true history of how the people of Fontaine first came into being.
So we were all Oceanids before we turned into humans?
That's way too much information for me. I think I'm just going to pretend that I never heard a single thing. Wait, but if that's the truth, we can't let the Hydro Archon be sentenced to death. After all, her only sin was created.
This really might be too much information for your regular Fontainian, but it does answer a lot of our questions.
Alas, your hypothesis regarding the third and fourth stone slates was inaccurate. The slates' respective positions are, in fact, correct. A key point of the visual on the third slate is how all the individuals depicted in the water are humans rather than Oceanids. They have not been dissolved, which implies that the water depicted in this slate is not water from the primordial sea. The nation of Fontaine is the nation of Hydro, as well as the nation of trials and justice. Instead of being the literal element, the water in the scene symbolizes judgment and justice. You may also recall Navia's experience. When she fell into the sea, her consciousness was surrounded by that of many others who intended to hold a trial. Therefore, the meaning of the third slate is that the people of Fontaine shall try the Hydro Archon at the... Yes, it refers to our present situation.
I think I'm following now. So, what you're saying is, even though in truth, everything we've done has happened exactly...
What should we do?
Huh. No matter what, the prophecy would...
If that's the case, does that mean the scene in the fourth slate will also...
Traveler, I would like to point out another small fallacy about the fourth slate. You probably thought that the eruption of primordial seawater... However, I believe that rather than being a sure sign, that eruption could in fact... As for the root cause of the catastrophe, I believe you've already encountered it once before. This eruption was just a small warning of the things to come. We must find the root cause of the disaster.
It was both dream and...
If we're talking about a true culprit, that could only be that thing.
The truth, the original sin.
So we've met it at last. I understand very well why it has chosen to make an appearance here. That whale does not belong to Teyvat. It is a monster that has traversed the... It has been greedily consuming the energy from the planet's primordial sea, using it to grow. And once it has finished consuming all of the energy contained within the sea...
You said that when the Hydro Archon first created Fontainians out of Oceanids, she filled their blood vessels with primordial seawater.
Precisely. That whale finds the blood of Fontainians, not... Therefore, when it left the primordial sea, it decided to make its next stop a packed up...
We just barely managed to push it back, right?
That is correct. Indeed, it is more accurate to say that we should thank that Harbinger for buying us some time. Without him, the whale would have likely come onto land far sooner. From the way he looked, he must have been fighting the creature for quite a long time.
That battle maniac. We've always known that he had a special connection with that whale, but we Anyway, now that we know that this whale is the actual cause of the...
It is too late. It had already absorbed too much of the primordial sea's energy before we could notice it. At this point, it has become practically even if the entirety of Teyvat were to be destroyed, it could still survive.
That's not something... We've already done everything we can, and we even found the true culprit. We've come so far. You can't just tell me that the last hurdle is some
Indeed. That's not how a grand performance should end.
I'll fight it to the end. No matter what.
So the prophecy will be fulfilled no matter what, huh?
The prophecy. Yes. What has been prophesied? Just as prophecies are usually only the... Ultimately, fate shall serve as your only guide, no matter what will happen in Teyvat's future.
What's happening with the aura trees?
I believe it is preparing to carry out the death sentence.
Furina! No, I still need answers.